Good morning, students. I hope you all are fine. Okay, so let us start with the next section. After the unit test, I thought to start with Brchs. Before I start today's class, I want each one of you to keep your book, pen and paper ready with you so that you all can take necessary notes. Along with that, in order to go through each line, we need to have our books ready with us. So do that. So before I start explaining the poem, let us have a brief introduction about the poem as well as the poet. So the poem Brchs was written by Robert Lee Frost. Robert Frost was an American poet, and he was born in 1874 in United States of America, and he died at the age of 89 in 1963. He was awarded with 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his poetry, his contribution in literature for poetry specifically. His poems basically depicts a rural life, and it's quite famous as his poems provide a mature exploration of several themes. So these are the basic things about his poems. Okay, so now let us focus on the poem Brchs. The poem Brchs, actually the poet Robert Frost was inspired by another American poet, that is Lucy Lackham's poem Swinging on a Birch Tree, and inspired by this particular poet, he wrote this poem Brchs, which was first published in August 1915 in an Atlantic Monthly, and afterwards it was included in his volume of poetry, namely Mountain Interval in 1916. Okay, this particular poem Brchs, actually it's a perfect blend of you can say like realism as well as idealism, pragmatism as well as imagination. So this poem is has multiple interpretation, and in order to understand this poem, in order to get all those interpretation, you need to have a careful understanding, because this particular poem, it represents Frost's philosophy, which combines both fact and fancy. So we need to have a careful understanding of this particular poem. Okay, so basically this poem is written, and this poem is written in blank verse. Now what is blank verse? Blank verse is a literary device that shows that the poem is not written in it's not in rhythm, it's unrhymed scheme. Okay, you will not find any, like as we find like A B B C C, or this type of rhyming scheme you will not get. It's unrhymed. Okay, and this is the basic thing I wanted to convey. One more thing here I would like to convey, that is like another poem of Robert Frost, like Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening. There we find the same kind of feelings you will get here in this poem also, because in most of his poems we find this mature point of view towards life. When you are much burdened with all the responsibilities of life, and here when one is burdened with the responsibilities of life and seeks peace amidst nature, in the midst of nature. So in this poem also you will find the same thing. The poet understands the real fact behind the bending of this birches as well, but he is not ready to accept that. Rather, he wants to continue with his own fancy. Okay, so let us start the poem. Let us go through the lines so that everything can be discussed in a more minute way. This poem we will learn only page number 9 today, and next day we will complete page 10. So let us start. When I see birches bent to left and right, across the lines of straighter, darker trees. I like to think some boys been swinging them. So here, when the birches, what is birch? Birch tree is a kind of tree that we generally find in the northern side, northern hemisphere. So this particular trees are basically bent due to the ice. Okay, this ice makes this trees basically bent down. So when the poet finds, the speaker finds, sees birches are bent to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, means upright darker trees. I like to think some boys been swinging them. So the poet finds those trees bending down up, means left and right, but he prefers to think that he imagines that certain boys they have played over there, and it's due to their playing, their swinging, that those trees were bending. Okay, they bent left and right. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. The poet is imaginative. He imagines that, as well as he is ready to accept. It means he even knows the fact that certain boys swinging cannot bend those trees as much as ice storms can bend them. Okay, so the poet actually here shows has it's proven that the poet has he is absolutely aware of the fact that about the actual fact of those trees being such bent. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice in a sunny winter morning after a rain. So the poet has taken a minute observation. The poet has minutely or meticulously observed those trees and their blending. Okay, and thus he imagined that you all must have noticed this. Okay, they click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many colored as the street cracks and creases their enamel. So they click upon themselves. They click when it's a breeze. It's that makes them produce certain clicking sound. Okay, we find example of onomatopoeia over here. As the breeze rises, as the steel cracks and creases their enamel and turn many colored, means those ices, when it's the breeze, certain breeze rises, those ice, means the small pieces of the crystal ice that produces many colors, means like rainbow. Okay, means the sun rays when sun rays passes through those ice, then ice breaks into many colored and it produces like rainbow. It produces many, means it has many colored look. And as the steel cracks and creases their enamel, means when the sun rays it breaks and passes through the white enamel, means the white coating of snow, when it breaks that. Okay, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust such heaps of broken glass to sweep away, you would think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. And when those ice, as the sun rays it passes through the ice, then means it's shattered and it shatters and it drops down on the earth like broken pieces of glasses, and it looks like that the ground that is covered with snows and all, it falls on them and it looks like the inner dome of heaven had fallen. Okay, they are dragged to the withered bracken by the load as they seemed not to break, though once they are bowed so low for long they never right themselves. They are dragged to the withered bracken. Bracken is a fern or bush type trees, and it is having withered, it's addressed withered because of its dried up looks. Okay, so they are dragged by the road, and it is this farms or bushes they are found, generally they grow around hillsides, hill areas, and they seem not to break. Okay, though once they abode so low for long, they never right themselves. And as it's loaded with the ice, and it's the poet says that here the poet imagines that the trees, the birches are bent so low for the boys have played over there, they have for due to their swinging, but actually it's the load of the ice that has made those trees bend down so low that it can never be back to its position, right? You may see their trunks arching in the woods years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. Now he says, like here means the trees, its trunks are bent down, it's arching, means it's bent down in the woods years afterwards. It will be seen like this for years. As if it seems like it's a simile used here, where the arching of those trees are compared with the girls who are sitting on girl sitting on her knees and hands, and her hairs are thrown in order to make it dry in the sun. So here the girl means these trees are compared to girls. So here absolutely you will find that the poet's use of imagery and the use of the way the poet has compared it, means the usage of simile and all, it absolutely creates a picture. We can visualize the thing in front of us. It is explained in such a way. Okay, so it's simply the vivid image. The image is so vivid. It's the poet's explanation is in such a way that we can visualize. Okay, but I was going to say, when truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out and in to fetch the cows. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself, summer or winter, and could play alone. Now again, when the poet says, but I was going to say, when truth broke in, truth, T is in capital, personified. Okay, so the poet here, the poet's realization of the actual fact that it's not that the birches are not bent due to certain boys is playing, rather it's because of the ice storm. But though he knows the fact, means here you can see that the poet's realistic observation somehow obstructs his fancy. Okay, so the poet, when the matter comes that the poet has to accept the truth, the poet prefers rather to go on with his fancy, though it's obstructed by the truth, but he wants to continue with his fancy, and he says he rather prefers that these trees are bent due to the playing of those boys, because some of the boys who live far beyond, and to that particular boy to play with these trees are more interesting than learning baseball. Or this is the play where he needs not to learn anything from anyone else, rather he can play on by his own self. He doesn't need any companion or anyone to make him understand, rather he can continue with his own interest and own enjoyment in all sort of season without anyone's help. So here actually the poet himself swings between the reality and reality and his own imagination, and at the end, own imagination that is obstructed by truth, but the means he prefers his own imagination, though the truth hampers his fancy, but he wants to continue with his own imagination. So up to this much I told you all that this is quite a long poem. We will be completing this in the next class. So we have live class back to this. I hope if you have any sort of queries or doubts, we can get it clear over there. We can have a discussion. You will get plenty amount of time after this video class. So I want each one of you to have a basic preparation about this poem, so that I can understand whether you all have understood or not. So this much for today, children. Thank you. Have a nice day.